The hero of time, the most interesting Link in the entire Zelda series. A noble orphan who rescued Hyrule and Termina, but was at the same time exploited and undesired after the 2 victories he established. Despite his great courage and personal relationships, there was no true happy ending for the hero of time. Killed by Ganondorf in one outcome, and in the other died as a forgotten hero after being sent back to relive his childhood by adult Zelda, then left Hyrule despite Princess Zelda's objection, and then again was sent away from Termina by the Skull Kid. The most courageous hero who eased the pain of others and always fulfilled his duty, but never lived to celebrate the victory and peace he established. This is the tragic life of the hero of time. Little is known regarding the hero of time's birth and roots, as the only specific references to his family are offered by the Deku Tree Sprout and Hyrule Historia. From these 2 sources, we know that Link's father was a noble knight who made a Hylian female pregnant in the closing phase of the long-lasting Hyrulean Civil War. She gave birth to a son, while the father fought to and possibly fell in the bloody war. Eventually, the fires of the Civil War also reached the villages of central Hyrule, and the wounded mother hurried with her infant to the Kokiri Forest. Here, she realized that she didn't have much time left and entrusted the child to the great Deku Tree, the guardian spirit of the forest. The hero of time's mother succumbed to her injuries, knowing that her son would be safe from the ongoing conflict.
And here we need to bring up a question, as we don't know if it was the dying mother or the great Deku Tree who named or perhaps even renamed the young infant Link. One argument in favor of this possibility is that the old Great Deku Tree sensed that this was a child whose fate would affect the entire world. This premonition, not the dying pleas of the mother, most likely made the Great Deku Tree take care of the boy, and upon his mother's passing, raised him as a Kokiri named Link. This cover-up and preparation for his destiny was only possible as Link was orphaned before he even knew who he and his parents were. His early childhood was one big lie orchestrated by the Great Deku Tree, though with a hint of truth, as Hyrule Encyclopedia's page 50 states that the Kokiri are also Hylians. They trace their roots back to a time when the Hylians were first developing their civilization, building cities and relying on a less natural way of life. Though the Kokiri decided to distance themselves from the Hylians, exiling themselves to the forest to make their own way of life closer to nature.
This natural upbringing in a forest and dressing in a green fairy child tunic made Link stand out from the other Hylians who were busy rebuilding after victory in the Civil War and unification by the royal family. It became quickly apparent that he wasn't only a Hylian outcast, as with age, Link began to outgrow his fellow Kokiri, and suspicion arose that Link wasn't really one of them, but rather a full-blood Hylian. In part because Link had no guardian fairy. This would change one day and set in motion some horrific experiences for the young Hylian child. Until that fateful day arrived, Link became close friends with Saria, who often played on her Ocarina for Link's amusement, and supported him whenever he was bullied by the other Kokiri. For Saria, Link was her closest friend, and it didn't matter whether he was a Kokiri or a Hylian, who one day would leave for Hyrule. Link continued to grow and build a stronger and stronger bond to Saria, which greatly infuriated the jealous Mido, who continued to bully and work against Link. This internal tension continued until the humiliated by the Hylians, Ganondorf, king of the Gerudo, entered the forest. On that fateful day, when the carefully orchestrated plan to claim the Triforce was set in motion, the Great Deku Tree refused to hand over the Kokiri Emerald. This act of courage and loyalty to the Hyrulean royal family quickly turned into a death sentence for the Guardian, who was mortally cursed by Ganondorf. Meanwhile, Link was fast asleep, having nightmares about this foul creature who would soon threaten Hyrule. The Great Deku Tree was forced to act fast, called upon Navi the fairy, and informed that the time had arrived for the child without a fairy to be summoned and fulfill his destiny. Though skeptical, Navi complied, woke up Link, and told him to follow her to the Great Deku Tree.
On the way out, Saria was full of joy when she noticed that the Guardian Fairy finally decided to accompany her friend. Obviously, Saria knew that this wasn't a good sign, but played along. Link hurried to the Great Deku Tree, but was blocked by Meadow, who forced Link to obtain the Kokiri sword and shield. The Great Deku Tree was dying, and desperately pleaded Link to enter his interior to ease his pain by destroying Goma, before telling him about the creation of Hyrule, the Triforce, and his mission to stop Ganondorf by allying with Princess Zelda of Hyrule. In his dying breath, he bestowed a Kokiri Emerald to Link, who ignored Midow's insults and accepted Saria's parting gift, her Ocarina, as a momentum of their everlasting friendship, despite their racial differences. Little did Link know that this was the second to last time he would see Saria alive in this timeline. Bewildered by the sudden gesture of gratitude, Link hurried off to Hyrule Castle Town, where he befriended the ranch girl Malon and helped bring back her lazy father Talon from the castle prior to meeting with Princess Zelda. Just like Link, she had the same prophecy regarding Ganondorf's scheme to take over Hyrule, but was helpless as her father didn't believe her visions. Faced by this looming threat, she instead decided to entrust Link to claim the remaining spiritual stones. Link accepted this task and was then taught by Impa Zelda's lullaby, and at the entrance of the Forest Temple, Saria's Song by Saria. These two songs were crucial in Link's quest to win the heart of the Goron Patriarch Darunia, rescuing Princess Ruto from the insides of Lord Jabu Jabu, and claiming the Goron Ruby and Zora Sapphire.
The Zora engagement ring, however, came at a price. A lifelong relationship with the Zora Princess Ruto, who fell in love with the courageous and handsome boy. Luckily for Link, this wasn't a relationship he would be stuck in for long, partially since he preferred the redhead Malon, who was both kind and humble like himself. She also had more to offer, like Epona's song, which would become crucial for Link in a few years' time. Nevertheless, there was no time for any love triangles, as Ganondorf staged his long-planned coup in Hyrule Castle and town, killed the king, and forced Princess Zelda and Impa to a last-minute escape. Link arrived just in time to witness as Zelda threw the Ocarina of Time into the town moat, and then be confronted by Ganondorf, who cast Link aside as he had bigger fish to slay. Though this decoy was all according to Ganondorf's plan, who purposefully staged the coup to get Link to witness the mayhem he had caused in Castletown, and motivate him further to enter the Temple of Time, open the Door of Time, and pull the legendary Master Sword. The tragedy was complete when Link was sealed for 7 years, and Ganondorf claimed the Triforce of Power, seized power in Hyrule as the self-proclaimed King of Evil. The reincarnation of Demise's hatred was in charge, and would remain so until the adult hero of time was sent out by the light sage Rauru and the mysterious Sheik to rid Hyrule and its temples of evil. This, however, would be no easy task for Link. In order to free the temples, he had to witness several of his close friends head on to their death. Saria, Darunia, and then Ruto, who confronted the hero of time for being a terrible husband. Losing Saria and Darunia was horrifying for Link, but in Ruto's case, Link really dodged a bullet. As for Impa and Nabooru, Link may not have shared the same bonds, but still pressured on to undo Ganondorf's curses on Hyrule and destroy his monsters by traveling through time, by returning the Master Sword in the future and pulling it in the past. Through his actions, the hero of time outsmarted Ingo with Epona's song to claim Ganondorf's planned horse and returned Lon Lon Ranch back to Talon and Malon, liberated Kokiri Forest from monsters, and allowed the Deku Tree sprout to emerge and inform him of his tragic origins, rescued the Gorons from extermination, King Zora from being frozen, Kakariko from burning down to the ground, and the Gerudo from the tyranny of Ganondorf's surrogate mother, Koumi and Kotake. With all the spiritual stones from the 6 sages, Link headed back for the Temple of Time to plan the assault on Ganon's castle with Sheik. There, Sheik revealed her true identity as the 7th sage and keeper of the Triforce of Wisdom, Princess Zelda, and granted the hero of time the light arrows. Unfortunately, Ganondorf had Link under complete surveillance and sealed the princess the moment after she dropped her disguise, bringing her to his castle. With the assistance of the 6 sages, Link conquered the trials set by Ganondorf and steadily fought his way towards the top of the castle, where the King of Thieves and the imprisoned Zelda waited for the hero's entrance. The massive door opened, and accompanied by the sound of organs, the Triforce of Power, Wisdom, and Courage resonated.
These toys are too much for you. I command you to return them to me.
The decisive battle against the King of Thieves for the Triforce and the future of Hyrule commenced. When the Hero of Time confronted and crushed Ganondorf, the King of Thieves tried to crush the castle along with the princess and the hero. When this failed, he utilized the Triforce of Power to transform into the Demon King Ganon. For a short moment, the Hero of Time was forced to rely on his remaining items and the Bigoron sword, but was eventually successful in his efforts to bring the Demon King down to his knees. The 7 sages sealed Ganondorf with the Triforce of Power in the Sacred Realm. He in return cursed them and swore to murder their descendants, while the Hero of Time was sent back to the past to relive his childhood. The Hero of Time, a child in an adult's body who fell in one outcome and came out victorious in the other, but had to live with the loss of nearly all of his childhood friends and companions. A fact that Princess Zelda was painfully aware and regretful for. It was this that made the decision easy for adult Zelda to send Link 7 years back to create an alternative universe where Ganondorf's coup could be thwarted.
Despite personally missing out on the grand celebrations of Ganondorf's fall, the Hero of Time remained a cherished figure in the adult timeline, which at the same time doomed itself by sending him back. Link returned the Master Sword to never pull it again, lost Navi who left without a goodbye, and if this loss and the deaths in the adult timeline wasn't enough, the Triforce in this new alternate universe also split upon his arrival with the Triforce of Courage. On one side, this split and the Triforce of Courage convinced the King of Hyrule of Ganondorf's evil intentions, but also created a new threat that would strike with full strength in the Twilight Era. For a short while, Link likely remained in Hyrule Castle, but eventually headed back to Kokiri Forest to meet with Zarya, who perhaps even handed him his own Ocarina once again. Why would she do so? Because Link asked, and how else would Link gain Epona's trust, along with Malone's? The Hero of Time returned back to Zelda and informed her that he would set out to locate a lost friend. Zelda, however, refused to let him depart without handing the Ocarina of Time and teaching him the Song of Time to keep him safe from danger. Link headed out to search out for Navi.
The hero embarked from Hyrule, but was shortly after knocked out and robbed by the Skull Kid, who had stolen the powerful and evil Majora's Mask from the Happy Mask salesman in the Lost Woods. After a brief chase, Link finally fell down a tree trunk, was cursed by the Skull Kid, and ended up in the parallel world of Termina. The hero found himself in Clock Town 3 days prior to the Carnival of Time, and quickly learned that the moon was falling. The Skull Kid and Majora were behind it, and the fact that the masks of Termina possess spiritual powers. Not wasting any time, the hero recaptured his ocarina and played the Song of Time to set the time back to the moment of his arrival to Termina. He learned from the Happy Mask salesman that an ancient tribe had in the past used the accursed mask for hexing rituals, and that the Skull Kid had been possessed by it. The only way to prevent the apocalypse was to destroy the 4 masked monsters lurking in the temples of Woodfall, Snowhead, Great Bay, and the Stone Tower, and awaken the 4 guardian deities of the land. Using the ocarina's properties, Link conquered the struggles and time itself, but did as well realize that the land and races of Termina were in a miserable state and plagued by deep and tribal tragedies. The people of Termina saw themselves as too enlightened to be governed by gods. Instead, they took advantage and pride of other powers, such as the magical masks. Without them, and then in particular, the Deku, Zora, and Goron transformation masks, the Hero of Time would never have passed through the trials of the land. In the end, the Hero of Time was a just and noble soul who helped people, lost souls, and races in need, and for this he was rewarded by Majora with the Fierce Deity's Mask, a mask told to contain the combined memories and souls of Termina's inhabitants. With this mask, Link couldn't possibly lose against the demon. The Hero of Time confronted Majora in the final hours and destroyed it, its incarnation, and finally Wrath, saving Termina from the apocalypse and freed the innocent and naive Skull Kid. The spirit inside the mask was gone as the happy mask salesman thanked Link for his assistance. With his mission completed, Link and Epona returned to the Lost Woods and continued his search for Navi. After some additional journeys, the Hero of Time eventually returned to Hyrule. But what happened to the kingdom while he was absent? One answer to this question can be traced to the ancient sages at Arbiter's Grounds, who states that Ganondorf invaded Hyrule. The ruins of the Temple of Time were most likely the subsequent result of Ganondorf's occupation and destruction of Castletown during his invasion. The tide of war eventually turned and ended it with the expulsion of the Gerudo tribe and the botched execution of Ganondorf after the Triforce of Power resonated within him. Instead, the Gerudo thief was banished to the Twilight Realm. The Hero of Time returned to a ruined Hyrule, befriended the Gorons, and even handed over his bow from Termina for safekeeping until another hero could claim it during Hyrule's Hour of Need, now that Ganondorf had been banished. What followed is more unclear, although it is likely that the Hero of Time, with his battle experience, became a Hylian knight just like his father before him. That is, if we are to believe Hyrule Historia. According to the same official source, Link also had offspring, and his bloodline continued until the era of Twilight. But how? Malon. It is the only Hylian girl that Link knew and had a chance on when Princess Zelda was completely unreachable. Another detail is that Malon, much like the rest of Hyrule's population, likely became a refugee after Ganondorf sacked and burned Lon Lon Ranch. The same fate that had met Hyrule Castle and town, and which was now being moved to a new location. With Link returning on Epona, the only remnant from her childhood at Lon Lon Ranch, it is quite possible that they fell for each other. Since there was no Lon Lon Ranch, Link must have insisted Malon to follow him to his former home, Kokiri Forest. Over the next years together, they turned the ruined settlement into a farming and horse and goat breeding village and renamed it Ordon Village. A common need for shelter after the Gerudo-Hylian War developed into a lifelong relationship between Link and Malon with offspring. As it usually was for the Hero of Time, periods of happiness did not last, and his new position as a Hylian knight would in the end lead to a brutal death in battle. An outcome clearly indicated by the damaged knight armor, helmet horn, and missing horn. Possibly it was on the battlefield during an unspecified conflict, though he might also have fallen victim to a beast, or perhaps his inner shadow, Dark Link, the darkness within that he never conquered in the child timeline and simply failed to strike down without his master sword. We will never receive a detailed answer of how the Hero of Time's life ended, though what we can assume is that he left behind Malon without a husband and his child without a father. No doubt Link died with regrets and constantly displeased with himself for not having been recognized for his heroic deeds in Hyrule and Termina. His sudden death came too soon, and before he was able to pass on his skills to his son or daughter, his bloodline descended. Unsurprisingly, due to these circumstances, the hero's shade lingered until he sensed that Ganondorf had returned with the Twilight Invaders, and that the time had arrived to finally pass on his secret skills to the new hero, the Hero of Twilight. With his decisive victory over Ganondorf, the Hero of Time, or the Hero's Shade, could finally rest knowing that his legacy would be remembered and carried on by his bloodline descendant.
As we clearly saw in Breath of the Wild, the legend of the Hero of Time lives on, and where other heroes have been forgotten, the legacy of the hero who first pulled his blade against Ganondorf lives on tens of thousands of years after his death. A true legend of time who sacrificed everything for the sake of Hyrule, Termina and its inhabitants. And that was the tragic life of the Hero of Time, which we hopefully will be revisited and detailed further in Breath of the Wild 2. If you enjoyed this theory and premiere for our brand new series, Heroes of Hyrule, Links of Hyrule, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and press that shiny notification bell to not miss any of our future Zelda and Nintendo Switch videos. As always, a big thanks goes to all our patrons on patreon.com/commonrealm, and we hope some of you are willing to join them there or here on YouTube by pressing the join button to help us make more productions like this one. Until those videos, we will see you in the next production.